I am Micah, 34 years old, living and working in Miami, Florida. Every day I wake up at 4 a.m., when the sky is still pitch black, to catch the bus to the construction site. The sound of drills, the smell of concrete, and the dust have become part of my life. I have no wife, no children, and no time for dreams. My life revolves around work, supporting my family in a cramped rented room I share with 2 other workers. But deep down, I carry a longing to be truly seen as family. I grew up in a middle-class family in Coral Gables, a suburb of Miami. My adoptive parents, the Thompsons, took me in from an orphanage when I was just a newborn. They weren't wealthy, but they provided me with a roof over my head, a place to sleep, and simple meals. I'm grateful for that, so grateful that I'd do anything to repay them. They have a biological son, Evan, 12 years younger than me, who's now in college. Evan is the center of the family, their pride, the light in my mother's eyes. And me? I'm just the adopted boy, always on the sidelines. From a young age, I learned to work hard. I graduated from a vocational college on a scholarship, but no one at home noticed. My mother gave me a faint smile and said, "Good, now go find a job." Meanwhile, every A Evan earned was boasted about to the neighbors. Every drawing he made was framed and hung on the wall. I'm not jealous, honestly. I just wanted, just once, for my mother to look at me the way she looks at Evan. Now I work as a construction worker, toiling day and night to support the family. Most of my wages go toward Evan's college expenses, tuition, dorm fees, books, even his pocket money. I don't complain. Evan is my brother, even if we don't share blood. I want him to have a good future, to make our parents proud. But sometimes I wonder, what about me? I live in a rundown rented room, eating instant noodles day after day, my clothes so worn they're fraying at the seams. I don't dare buy new shoes or go to a movie. Every cent I earn goes back home, hoping one day my mother will say, "Micah, you've done well." But that day never comes. One evening I visited home after an overtime shift. I was so exhausted my legs trembled and I clung to the doorframe to keep from collapsing. In the living room, my mother was beaming, hugging Evan tightly. He'd just been selected for the school's basketball team. "My boy is amazing," she said, ruffling his hair. I stood there quietly, waiting for her to turn to me. But she didn't look my way. My father, sitting in his armchair, only nodded at Evan. "Well done, son." I tried to speak up. "Today I finished a project early at the site. They said I did a good job." My mother just mumbled, her eyes still fixed on Evan. "Yeah, good. Oh, by the way, Evan needs more money for new basketball shoes. Can you send some extra, Micah?" I nodded, though my heart ached. I can't remember the last time my mother asked if I was okay, if I was tired. I'm just an ATM existing only to provide for Evan. In the days that followed, I worked even harder, taking on night shifts. Every morning I looked in the mirror, dark circles under my eyes, a gaunt face staring back. I told myself, just keep going and they'll see you're important. But deep down, I knew it was a lie. I remember once when I had a high fever, bedridden in my rented room. I called my mother, hoping she'd be worried, but she just said, "Take some medicine and don't let it affect your work. Evan has exams coming up and I'm busy." I hung up, tears streaming down my face. I didn't want to cry, but the loneliness crushed me. One time, I decided to do something for myself. I saved up $50, enough to buy a new jacket. It had been so long since I bought anything for myself. I stood outside the store, my hands trembling as I held the money, but then my mother called. "Micah, Evan wants to go camping with friends. Can you send $200 right away?" I swallowed my tears, walked away from the store, and sent every cent I had. That jacket remained a dream. The work at the construction site grew harsher. Every day I climbed scaffolding, hauling tons of materials. Sweat soaked my shirt, my back ached, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. If I did, who would pay Evan's tuition? Who would make my mother happy? I told myself I was strong, but my body began to betray me. Some nights I lay on a thin mattress, listening to my roommates snore and wondered, what am I living for? One morning, I arrived at the site with my head buzzing. I'd worked 16 hours the day before and only slept a few hours. The Florida sun scorched, the air stifling. I climbed the scaffolding, gripping tightly, but my vision started to blur. "Keep going, Micah," I told myself. But then everything went black. I heard my co-workers' shouts, the wind whistling in my ears, and my body plummeted. I woke up in the hospital, my body aching as if a truck had run me over. Machines beeped, the smell of antiseptic thick in the air. I tried to move, but a sharp pain in my chest made me groan. A nurse walked in, her eyes full of concern. "Are you okay, Micah? You've got several broken bones and need long-term rest." I nodded weakly, forcing a smile. But in my heart, I only thought of one thing. I need my mother. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I dialed. I called my mother, then my father, then Evan. No one answered. I texted, "Mom, I had an accident. I'm in the hospital. Can you come?" I waited, staring at the screen until my eyes burned. 1 hour, 2 hours, then a whole day passed. Not a single text, not a single call. I lay there alone in the sterile white room, listening to the nurse's footsteps in the hallway. My heart felt crushed. They knew I was here, but they didn't come. On the second day, the nurse came in, her face apologetic. "Micah, I contacted your family. They said they're busy." I looked at her, trying to keep my voice steady. "Busy with what?" She hesitated. "They said your brother is upset because he failed a course. They're throwing a party to cheer him up." I closed my eyes, tears spilling over. A party? They chose a party for Evan while I lay here, bones broken, heart shattered. I don't know how to feel. Angry, hurt, or just empty? I've sacrificed everything, my health, my dreams, my self-respect, to provide for my family, but to them I'm nothing. I'm just an outsider, a tool to serve Evan. I gripped the bedsheet, trying to stifle my sobs. But deep inside, a fire began to burn. I don't want to live like this anymore. Every morning, I woke up in the hospital with aching pain coursing through my body. The broken bones reminded me of the fall from the scaffolding, but the pain in my heart was far worse. I still checked my phone, hoping for a message from my mother, my father, or even Evan. But the screen remained empty. I told myself they were busy, that they'd come eventually. But deep down, I knew the truth. I didn't matter to them. After 2 weeks, the doctor discharged me. They said I'd need to rest for months, maybe a year, before fully recovering. "No more heavy lifting, Micah," the doctor warned. "You need to take care of yourself." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. Construction work was my lifeline, the way I provided for my family. If I couldn't work, how would I send money for Evan? How would I earn my mother's proud gaze? I left the hospital with a few old clothes and a bag of medication. No one came to pick me up. I took the bus back to my rented room, each jolt on the road making me grit my teeth in pain. The cramped room was the same, musty smell, the creaky hum of the fan. My 2 roommates, Juan and Carlos, asked a few questions. "You okay, Micah? Heard you took a bad fall?" I gave a weak smile. "I'm fine, thanks." But I wasn't fine. I felt like a drifting boat with no shore in sight. I called the construction company, hoping they'd hold my spot. But the manager's voice was cold over the phone. "Micah, you're out too long. The company can't wait. Sorry, we had to find someone else." I hung up, my hands trembling, jobless. I'd worked for them for years, taking overtime, never complaining. But one accident, and I was discarded like a broken tool. I had no choice but to go back to my parents' house. I didn't want to, honestly, but I needed a place to recover, needed some comfort. I pictured my mother hugging me, saying, "Rest, I'll take care of things." I imagined my father patting my shoulder, saying, "It'll be okay." I needed that belief, even just a sliver, to keep going. That weekend, I returned to my childhood home in Coral Gables. My heart pounded as I stood at the door. The house was the same, white picket fence, my mother's carefully tended garden. I knocked, each tap like a plea. My mother opened the door, her eyes flickering with surprise, then irritation. "Micah, why are you here without telling us?" I tried to smile despite the stabbing pain in my ribs. I had an accident, Mom. The construction company replaced me, so I wanted to stay with you and Dad for a while. She sighed, opening the door to let me in. Fine, come in, but don't make noise. Evan's studying. I nodded, stepping into the living room. Everything was familiar. Evan's photo on the wall, his basketball trophies on the shelf. Nothing related to me. I'd never noticed it before, but now it felt like a slap in the face. My father was in his armchair reading the newspaper. He looked up, frowning. Micah, how'd you manage to get into an accident? Working carelessly? I swallowed hard, trying to explain. I was exhausted, Dad. Too many hours. But he cut me off. Exhausted? Men have to endure. Now you've lost your job. What's your plan? I stood there, silent, feeling like a scolded child. They let me sleep in the old storage room filled with cardboard boxes and clutter. My mother handed me a thin blanket. Sleep here for now. Don't ask for more, we don't have space. I nodded, though my heart stung. I'd sent thousands of dollars to this family, but now I was only worth a cold corner of the storage room. In the days that followed, I tried to fit in, hoping things would improve. I dragged my aching body to do chores, washing dishes, sweeping the yard, though every movement made me break out in a cold sweat. I thought my mother would see my effort, soften toward me, but no. Every time I did something, she'd frown. Careful, Micah, don't break anything. Or, you're too slow, let me do it. Evan came home on weekends. He was tall, with highlighted hair, wearing a brand new basketball jersey. The day I returned, he glanced at me, smirking. Oh, you're back? Heard you fell or something? I nodded, waiting for a follow-up question, but a shrug. That sucks. Anyway, Mom, I need money for concert tickets next week. My mother immediately rushed to grab her purse, beaming. Of course, sweetie, whatever you need. I sat there watching the scene, feeling like someone had stabbed me in the chest. I'd just lost my job, broken my bones, and no one asked if I was okay. But Evan wanted concert tickets, and my mother was ready to spend money I'd sweated for. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I hobbled into the kitchen where my mother was cooking. Mom, I need to talk. She didn't turn around, just mumbled, What? I'm busy. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. I've done everything for this family. I paid Evan's tuition, sent money every month. Why don't you ever care about me? She stopped, turned, her eyes cold as stone. Care? Who do you think you are to demand that? You're adopted, Micah. We raised you, fed you, sent you to school. You should be grateful, not making demands. Her words cut into my heart like a knife. But I've done everything, I said, my voice trembling. I'm exhausted. I had an accident and no one came to the hospital. No one. She scoffed. You're being dramatic. Evan needs me more. He's my flesh and blood, and you... She trailed off, but I understood. I was nothing. My father overheard and walked into the kitchen. Micah, that's enough. Don't upset your mother. You lost your job and now you're a burden. If you want to stay here, find a new job and keep sending money. Evan's starting his junior year. He needs a lot. I stared at him, incredulous. A burden? Dad, I have broken bones. I just lost my job. He snapped. Don't argue. If you can't contribute to this family, don't stay here complaining. I went back to the storage room, closed the door, and sank to the floor. Tears streamed down, but I didn't wipe them away. I let them fall. Let the pain drown me. I'd sacrificed everything, my health, my dreams, my self-respect, to please them. But to them, I was just a useless tool, broken and discarded. Evan was the final straw. One morning, he knocked on the storage room door, standing there with an annoyed look. Hey, Mom said you need to send this month's money. I need a new laptop. I stared at him, stunned. Evan, I lost my job. I don't have money. He smirked. Then borrow some, go do something. You always send money. Why stop now? You're so selfish. I stood up, ignoring the pain. Selfish? I've paid your tuition for years, you know that? I lived in a dump so you could have a nice dorm. He shrugged. That's your job? You're adopted. If you don't help, who will? I couldn't speak anymore. I just watched him walk away, hearing my mother's cheerful laughter with him in the living room. In that moment, I realized this family would never see me as one of their own. I was just a pawn in their game, and when I was no longer useful, they were ready to cast me aside. I lay on the thin mattress, staring at the cobweb ceiling. I thought about the years gone by, the overtime shifts, the hungry nights, the times I swallowed tears to keep going. I'd lived for them, but they didn't need me. A fire ignited within me, not of anger, but of resolve. I couldn't keep living like this. I had to leave, to find myself again. I packed a few clothes into an old backpack. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't want to hear another insult. As I stepped out of that house, I felt the pain, but also a sliver of freedom. I didn't know where I'd go or what I'd do, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't let them define my worth anymore. I boarded the last bus of the day, watching the dim yellow streetlights flicker by, and told myself, Micah, you have to start over just this once. Live for yourself. I returned to Miami, the city where I'd poured sweat and tears into construction sites. I had no rented room, no job. My savings would only last a few weeks if I ate instant noodles and walked instead of taking the bus. I stood in the middle of the street among a sea of strangers, feeling like a ghost. But then, I thought of Luis, my old construction foreman. He was the only person who'd ever treated me like family. I went to the old construction site, where the roar of drills was as loud as ever. Luis was there, his hard hat tilted to one side, shouting orders at the crew. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. Micah! You're still alive, you idiot! He hugged me so hard I groaned from the pain in my still healing ribs. I told him everything. The accident, losing my job, my family. Luis listened without interrupting, nodding and muttering a few curses in Spanish. You deserve better, Micah, he said. Stay with me. My place is small, but there's room for you. I moved into Luis's tiny apartment in Hialeah. He lived alone, his wife having passed away years ago, his grown kids living on their own. The apartment smelled of Cuban coffee and echoed with salsa music from the radio. Luis gave me the sofa to sleep on and handed me a thick blanket. Rest, he said. We'll figure things out. For the first time in months, I slept without dreaming of my mother or Evan. I felt a flicker of warmth, as if I wasn't entirely alone. Luis didn't let me wallow in despair. Every morning he dragged me out of bed, forcing me to eat breakfast, usually egg sandwiches and strong black coffee. He told stories of his early days in Miami, arriving from Cuba with nothing in his pockets. You know, Micah, in this life, you have to save yourself. No one else will do it for you. He found me odd jobs, fixing plumbing, painting walls for neighbors. It wasn't much money, but it was enough to keep me from feeling useless. More importantly, Luis believed in me. He said I was smart, that I could do more than construction work. You have a story, Micah, he said. Tell it. The world needs to hear it. I didn't understand him at first. Tell my story? I was just an unemployed construction worker. Who would care about me? But one night, while scrolling on my phone, I saw a video online. A woman sharing her journey of escaping a toxic family. The video had millions of views, thousands of comments. I read them, seeing people share their own stories as if they found themselves in her words. I thought, I have a story too, maybe. I should try. I borrowed Luis's phone, an old smartphone, but still better than mine. I sat on the sofa, the dim kitchen light glowing behind me, and recorded my first video. I didn't know what to say, so I just looked at the camera and let my heart guide me. My name is Micah, I started, my voice shaky. I'm 34, used to be a construction worker in Miami. I grew up in a foster family, but they never saw me as their son. I did everything for them, paid my brother's tuition, lived in a rundown room so they could have a better life. But when I had an accident, they didn't come. They called me a burden. Tearing up, I didn't stop. I spoke about the pain, the betrayal, and my resolve to leave. The video was 10 minutes long, raw, unedited. I posted it on a video platform, titling it The Forgotten Son. I didn't expect anything. I thought a few people might watch it and move on. But the next morning, Luis's phone buzzed nonstop. The video had hundreds of views, then thousands. Comments flooded in. "Micah, my family treated me like you. Thank you for speaking out. You're so strong, don't give up." I read each one, my heart pounding. I never imagined my story would touch anyone. Luis slapped my shoulder, laughing. "Told you." I started making more videos. I documented life in Miami, the vibrant street corners, mornings drinking coffee with Luis, days doing odd jobs. I shared my journey, from lonely nights in the hospital to the freedom of leaving my family. I didn't pretend or embellish, I was just me, Micah, a man with a scarred past, searching for light. I even shared my weak moments, like sitting by the ocean, watching the waves and wondering if I was worthy of love. My videos spread quickly. Thousands of views turned into millions. Strangers messaged me, sharing their stories of being abandoned children, of sacrificing for families who didn't value them. I replied to every message, even when my hands ached. I felt less alone. I found a community, a new family, not bound by blood but by understanding. Luis became a side character in my videos. He'd pop in holding a coffee mug, teasing me on camera. "Micah, tell the story properly, don't embarrass me." Viewers loved him. They called him Papa Luis, and he grinned ear to ear. Thanks to the videos, I earned some money from ads. I paid Luis back, bought a new phone, and started learning to edit videos. I wasn't rich, but I felt alive, truly alive. One day I got an email from a stranger, Elena Torres. She introduced herself as a film producer in Los Angeles. "Micah, I've seen your videos," she wrote. "Your story is powerful. I want to collaborate to turn it into a movie. Can we meet?" I read it over and over, thinking it was a prank. But Luis, sitting beside me, roared, "Call her now, you idiot! This is your chance!" I called Elena, my heart racing. She was serious. She wanted to buy the rights to my story, wanted me as a consultant for the film. "Your story isn't just yours, Micah," she said. "It's for millions struggling to find their worth." We met in Miami a week later. Elena was a petite woman, quick-talking with bright eyes. She offered a figure, $2 million. I was speechless. Luis, sitting next to me, kicked my shin under the table. "Say something." I negotiated, fueled by the confidence Luis gave me. We settled on $2.5 million. I signed the contract, my hand shaking so much the signature was a scribble. When Elena left, Luis hugged me, shouting, "You did it, Micah. You're a star." I laughed, but inside I still couldn't believe it. From an unemployed construction worker to $2.5 million. I didn't know what to do with the money, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't send a single cent to the family in Coral Gables. The $2.5 million contract with Elena was a light at the end of the tunnel, but it didn't come all at once. Elena explained that they'd transfer $500,000 up front to help me stabilize my life, with the remaining $2 million paid after the film was completed. When the first sum hit my account, I stared at the number, my heart pounding. I'd never seen that much money. It wasn't just money, it was freedom, a chance to live without counting every penny. I kept the contract a secret, not out of fear, but to protect the peace I'd newly found. Besides Luis, Elena, and a few people on the production team, no one knew. I didn't post videos boasting about it or tell my new friends. I was afraid that if word got out, my family would come sniffing around like vultures smelling money. And I didn't want them touching my new life. I started working closely with Elena and the film production team. They hired me as a consultant, not just to provide my story, but to give input on the script, casting, and even join some test shoots. I knew nothing about filmmaking, but Elena was patient. "Micah, you're the soul of this movie," she said. "No one can tell this story better than you." I visited the set, saw my name on a consultant's chair, and for the first time I felt proud. I wasn't just a victim of my past, I was creating something meaningful. I suggested small details, like a scene of an exhausted construction worker eating instant noodles in a rundown room, or the cold stare of an adoptive mother when her son begs for care. Each suggestion was a piece of my heart, and the team valued it. The $500,000 helped me settle. I paid Luis back, though he brushed it off. "Call it a gift, Papa Luis," I laughed, pressing the money into his hand. I moved into a small apartment near the beach. Not fancy, but mine. Every morning I woke to the sound of waves and felt freedom. I enrolled in a project management course, a field that didn't demand the physical toll of construction. I learned slowly, stumbling over new terms, but each step forward made me proud. I was no longer the exhausted construction worker. I was Micah, rebuilding his life. News about the film started to leak. At first, it was just a few articles on small news sites calling it a moving story of resilience. Then bigger outlets picked it up. An article in the Miami Herald mentioned me. Micah, from construction worker to social media phenomenon, is bringing his life story to the big screen. I read it, both embarrassed and thrilled. Luis bought a dozen copies, showing them off around the neighborhood. "See? I told you you'd be a star," he laughed. Then one day I got an email from a local TV show, Morning Miami. "We'd like to invite you for an interview, Micah," they wrote. "Your story is inspiring millions. Share it with our audience." I trembled reading it, thinking it was a mistake. Me on TV? But Luis pushed me. "Go, you idiot. The world needs to know who you are." Elena agreed. "This is a chance to spread your message, Micah." The interview took place in a bright studio filled with lights. The host, Carla, gave a warm smile. "Micah, you've gone from a construction worker to a social media phenomenon and now a consultant for a major film. What kept you going?" I took a deep breath and told my story. From grueling days at the construction site, the scaffolding accident, my adoptive family's indifference, to my journey of rediscovering myself. I spoke about Luis, Elena, and the upcoming film. "I used to think I needed my family to feel worthy," I said, my voice shaking as I recalled the past. "But I learned my worth doesn't depend on them. I chose to live for myself." Carla nodded, her eyes glistening. When the show ended, she hugged me. "You're truly special, Micah." The interview aired and my phone exploded with messages from viewers. "Micah, thank you for speaking for us. You gave me the courage to live for myself." I smiled, but then I realized if strangers saw the interview, my family would too. And just as I feared, they came looking. A week after the interview, my mother texted me. "Micah, my son, I'm sorry for everything. Let's meet and talk. I miss you." I gave a bitter smile. Did she miss me or my money? Evan was more shameless. "Bro, heard you're making bank? Lend me some cash for a car, I'll pay you back." My father was curt. "Micah, come home. The family needs to talk." Not one asked if I was okay, if I'd survived those lonely months. I gripped my phone, reading each message, feeling like a knife was twisting in my chest. I told Luis. He roared, slamming the table. "Don't be stupid, Micah. They treated you like garbage and now they're pretending to apologize for money. Don't meet them." But I hesitated. A part of me, the weak part craving family, still wanted to believe they'd changed. I agreed to meet, but not in Coral Gables. I chose a crowded cafe in downtown Miami where I could leave if things turned sour. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early, sitting in a corner, clutching my coffee. My mother walked in wearing a floral dress, hair pinned up like she was going to a party. My father followed, his gait heavy. Evan came last, earbuds dangling, eyes glued to his phone. They sat down and my mother started right away. "Micah, my son, I'm so glad you're okay." Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were cold. I nodded, waiting. My father got to the point. "Heard you signed a film deal. $500,000 up front, right? The family's struggling. Can you help?" I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. "Struggling? How?" "I sent money for years. Evan's tuition, house bills, everything." My mother cut in, her voice shrill. "But you have money now, Micah. You can't be selfish. Evan needs a new car for school, the house needs a new roof, I need medication." Evan chimed in, not looking up. "Yeah, just share some cash. I need to pay off my credit card." I looked at them one by one. Not one asked about the accident, the nights I spent alone in the hospital, or losing my job. They only saw me as a wallet. I took a deep breath, speaking slowly. I don't owe this family anything anymore. I've paid enough with my sweat, my health, my heart. Now I want to live for myself. My mother froze, then shrieked. How dare you say that? I raised you, fed you, sent you to school. You're ungrateful. My father slammed the table, his voice sharp. Micah, if you won't help, don't call us family. Evan smirked. Thought you were hot stuff making a movie? Without family, you're nothing. I stood, my heart pounding. If this is family, I don't need it. I turned and walked out, leaving my mother's shouts behind. You'll regret this, Micah. I returned to Luis's, trembling with anger and pain. I told him everything and he hugged me. You did the right thing. They don't deserve you. That night I couldn't sleep. I thought about the years of sacrifice, the insults, and realized I couldn't let them drag me down. I had to live for myself no matter how scary it was. A year has passed since I signed the contract with Elena, and my life now feels like a dream I never dared to dream. The film, titled The Forgotten Son, officially premiered in theaters nationwide. I still remember the premiere night in Miami, sitting in the theater, my heart pounding. The screen lit up, and my story, the exhausting days at the construction site, the pain in the hospital, the betrayal of my family, unfolded frame by frame. I didn't cry, but my hands gripped the seat tightly. When the words, based on the true story of Micah, appeared, the entire theater erupted in applause. Luis, sitting beside me, nudged my shoulder. You did it, Star! The film was a success beyond expectations. Critics called it a raw, deeply moving story. Audiences lined up outside theaters, and on social media the hashtag #Forgotten Son trended for weeks. An article in Variety wrote, Micah hasn't just told a story, he sparked a movement about resilience and self-love. I read it, still unable to believe it. From an unemployed construction worker, I had become an inspiration to millions. A few days after the premiere, Elena called. Micah, the film's killing it at the box office. We're transferring the remaining $2 million to your account today. I nodded over the phone, but when I hung up, I sank onto the sofa, dazed. $2 million plus the $500,000 from before was an amount I'd never imagined. It wasn't just money. It was proof that I had overcome, that I had triumphed over my past. I knew what I wanted to do with the money. I drove to Hialeah and knocked on Luis's door. He opened it, still in his old t-shirt, holding a coffee mug. What Hollywood star got time to visit an old man? He teased. I laughed, pulling him to sit down. Luis, I want you to retire. I'll take care of you. He frowned, waving me off. What nonsense. I'm still strong, I can work. But I was firm. You saved me, Luis. Now let me take care of you. I'm buying a new house and you're moving in with me, okay? Luis grumbled, but I saw his eyes well up. I found a small beachfront villa in Miami, not extravagant but spacious enough for both of us to live comfortably. The house had a balcony overlooking the ocean where I could hear the waves every morning. I convinced Luis to move in, and after weeks of grumbling, he agreed. Fine, but I'm still making coffee every morning, got it? He said, and I burst out laughing. Seeing him sit in an armchair, reading the newspaper by the window, I felt a weight lift off my chest. Luis wasn't just my old foreman, he was family, the father I chose. I kept making videos not for fame, but to document my new life. I shared simple moments. Luis teaching me to cook Cuban dishes, morning runs along the beach, or sitting on the balcony writing reflections on my project management course. I stopped mentioning the past. My adoptive family, Coral Gables, the insults, they were all left behind, like a nightmare that had faded. I didn't need to talk about them to heal. I healed by living authentically as myself.